One fact tuning into today's video, you're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. Today, see if we can find some signs of winter, not really much signs of anything happening, to be honest. We're going to try and get low pressure coming in over the weekend and into next week. Whether it actually comes off, I'm not sure. It's going to be a case of like the irresistible force made to be a movable object, because high pressure is stuck firm, anchored firm across central parts of Europe, and as this low pressure comes up against it, it may break it down a little bit. But it's always the job of models to decide how much energy to push into a ridge of high pressure. So I think we've just got to wait and see how it pans out. But I'll show you the charts in a moment before I get on with that. Just talk about the advertising in this video. Ads on my page at gazweathers.com. Hit play on the video ads, you'll be supporting gazweathers.com. Thanks so much for doing that. Gaz Shop is open, so if you want to do any Christmas shopping at Amazon, click through the Amazon banners in Gaz Shop. It'll take you through to Amazon. You can do your Christmas shopping there as normal, but at the same time, Gaz Weathers will get a royalty fee on anything that you purchase. These things do make a big difference to the website, so thanks so much for doing that. Now, I've had some very cold air, severely cold air, across northeastern America, Northern America, and Canada, and that is working its way out into the Atlantic as a trough of low pressure through the course of this week. Now, as you get through to the 8 to 10 day period, and these are the 500 millibar mean flow charts for 8 to 10 days time, with the ECMWF here on the left and the GFS on the right. This will be taking us through to around the middle of December, actually, so through beyond the middle of the month, really. And we can see that the blue colours here, the below average heights, are where we've got that cold air pushing out into the Atlantic from Northern America and Canada. Both the ECMWF and the GFS agree that we do get this big trough setting up in the Atlantic and across the polar region as well, certainly around Greenland. Very deep trough of low pressure. But here's the ridge across eastern and central parts of Europe. That's what's been keeping us dry and pretty mild through most of December so far. It's still there as we go out into the 8 to 10 day period. Which, as I say, is taking us to around the 18th of December, something like that, so beyond the middle of the month. Now, there's a very subtle difference between these two charts. The basic idea is the same, with the trough in the Atlantic, the ridge over the continent, but there is a subtle difference, which is that on the ECMWF, which is this one on the left, the trough is deeper and it's closer to the United Kingdom. The jet stream is running through more or less over the country. A strong jet stream as well, by the way, very strong jet stream. But that trough of low pressure is impacting the British weather a little bit more, whereas the GFS actually has the low pressure more locked in up towards the Northern Atlantic and going towards Iceland, Greenland, and around the polar region. And the ridge of high pressure here is actually centred more or less over the United Kingdom, sitting out into the Atlantic, and then ridging eastwards in central and eastern parts of Europe. So the GFS is by far the most settled sort of scenario. The ECMWF is showing signs of breaking down that ridge of high pressure with this trough of that low pressure somewhat. Now, whichever one turns out to be right, these are not cold charts. To get a cold chart or get a cold scenario going, this trough of low pressure really needs to be centred to be to the south or the east of the United Kingdom, with a block of high pressure over the top. We've got nothing like that on either the ECMWF or the GFS. So if you're waiting for the Daily Express headlines to turn up and the UK to be turned into a snowbound, ice-covered sort of Siberian wilderness, there's absolutely no sign of it starting anytime soon. Certainly not before Christmas. So have a look at the GFS chart. As you'll not be surprised to see, as we saw in the 500 millibar height anomaly, the GFS is a more settled scenario. So here's the low pressure coming in off the Atlantic on the 13th of December, just coming into the northwest. The high pressure is still ridging there to the south and the east of the country. That ridging high pressure sort of goes on to the south and the east, with these areas of low pressure still being kept away to the north and the northwest, really impacting Scotland and Northern Ireland. The high pressure basically in control for England and Wales. It could be chilly at times, there could be some mist and fog, there could be some ground frost, but it is by no means a cold scenario. We've got a very, very strong polar vortex there going on across Greenland and Iceland to the south of Greenland, intense areas of low pressure with that cold air that's come out of Canada and North America. And until that shifts, we're not going to get into a proper cold sort of block scenario. Now, as we move through to a week's time, which is Monday the 16th, we do try to bring some low pressure in off the Atlantic there. We do finally try to start to break down that ridge of high pressure, but it never really comes to much. As we go through to the 17th and on into the 18th, 19th of December, we're actually finding the high pressure building back in again from the south, with the low pressure again being shunted off to the north. We saw it on the 500 bit of our high anomalies, but GFS is by far a more settled sort of scenario this morning, and the high pressure just really goes on. The low pressure never really breaks it down, and if anything, the high pressure sort of re-establishes itself as we start to move towards the Christmas period. The ECMWF is more unsettled, so let's have a look and see what that's showing. And yes, it does break down at high pressure a lot more. It's a slow process. Let's go through the weekend. Definitely signs of re-establishing some westerly or southwesterly winds. Those winds could be quite mild, by the way, coming up from the mid-Atlantic, but certainly signs that the ridge is breaking down. Anyway, so perhaps more interesting if you want to see some interest weather, but it's not a cold scenario with this polar vortex again, very strongly intense across Greenland and Iceland. But high pressure very, very gradually breaking down. So as we move through in towards the 17th on into the 18th of December, the middle of next week, yet low pressure coming through properly then across all parts of the country, bringing some bouts of rain in from the Atlantic. And we ended up actually on Thursday the 19th, perhaps in quite a stormy scenario. That's a deep area of low pressure getting to wind up in the Atlantic, possibly bringing some gales and some heavy rain across the country. So that will be a little bit more interesting perhaps by the 19th. But I do have to emphasise that it's always a job for the models to break down a ridge of high pressure, particularly when it's as stubborn as this one that we've got across central parts of Europe. They often break it down too quickly. So maybe I'd favour the GFS scenario with this actually. I suspect the high pressure could go on quite a few more days beyond what that ECMWF run is showing. The GEM, the Canadian model, how does that break the high pressure down? Well, there it is across central Europe, most of Europe actually. Through the weekend, the low pressure is trying to come in off the Atlantic. Does it break it down? Well, it does a little bit, particularly to the north and west, but still the idea is that the high pressure is more or less in control to the southeast, even going out to Monday the 16th. But by Tuesday the 17th, definitely signs then will start bringing some low pressure. That's quite a deep low pressure. Could bring some quite heavy rain across the country. Gales perhaps for Wednesday the 18th. Very mild though. Look how far southwest the isobars going right down to the Azores, so bringing up some very tropical air across the country by Wednesday the 18th. But it is a lot more unsettled with bouts of heavy rain sweeping across the country. Moving through to day 10, Thursday the 19th. Well, we're in a flat sort of westerly flow then. That could be a little bit cooler. But the high pressure is still sort of there to the south and the east across the continent. We've got high pressure in the Atlantic, so it really won't take too much at all to get that high pressure to build back in. So to be honest, there is signs that low pressure may start to break down this ridge over the weekend and into next week, but it's very tentative. I won't want to put too much credence by it. And even if high pressure does break down next week, it'll only be to a sort of a wet and windy type pattern. There's no sign of anything really wintry coming up this side of Christmas. I'm pretty confident about that. Now, as we get to Christmas and beyond Christmas, things could change. Things do change very rapidly in the world of weather. But we're going to have to see big changes on this pattern, because that's a very strong polar vortex that's locked in around Greenland and Iceland, or will be locking in around Greenland and Iceland. It's going to take a lot to break out of it. It can be broken. Well, I'm sure at some point through the winter we probably will break out of it, at least temporarily. But certainly no sign of anything really wintry coming up for the foreseeable future. And those Daily Express headlines are looking increasingly unlikely and doubtful, certainly this side of Christmas. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.